Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we're going to try and solve the issue that Scott is having with his Penn International reel. This is a Penn International. It is the International 12 VISX. And when we previewed this, a lot of folks said that they might like to see what's going on in the reel, and I guess so would I. And here's Scott's note. He was out rock cod fishing, and well, he would land a big ling cod in deep water, but the issue was that when he hooked the fish and was winding up, after about 7 to 10 winds, the reel suddenly would stop. The spool briefly stopped working. The handle turned about 3/4 of the way around. There's a noise when that happened, and then when he stopped winding, all of a sudden the reel would start reeling again. One of the deckhands thought it might be a chipped tooth on the gear, and could I check that out and see what we can do? Well, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to try and figure out what's going on with Scott's reel. I rule out the chipped tooth right away because that doesn't happen sporadically. It would happen on every turn of the gear, and I'm not feeling that. So it's going to be something other than a chipped tooth. Well, we're going to get started by removing the exterior pieces and parts. And as we do, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel, particularly if you like the idea of reel service and repair. If you'd like to see how reels get together and come apart, and how to get serviced, and how to identify issues like this one, then subscribing would be one of the things to do. And if you do subscribe, then you should use the notification button. That will let you know when I'm posting, and you can make a determination as to whether that's something you want to learn more about. Well, we just removed our free spool adjuster, and then what we're going to do next is we're going to remove the swing arm here. Now you can take the reel off, the whole side plate off, without taking the handle assembly off first, because the mate thinks that it might be an issue with the teeth on the gear. We're going to want to inspect those. So to inspect those, we're going to need to take that handle assembly and the gear off. We'll show you how to do that. When I take the pieces and parts off, I put them into a parts tray. I use the bottom of a fast food container. And well, that parts tray just helps me keep track of what's been removed. And well, when it comes time to reinstall, I know where to go to get those parts. This part does not need to come off. It is a little Teflon washer. We'll take it off just for fun to show you. And there's 4 more screws here that will enable us to remove the side plate. Again, if you're doing a general service of the reel, if you're just looking at oiling the bearings and the like, I guess you could leave the side plate together. Not that important. When you take these off, notice that there is a little clear washer behind the screw. So if you weren't paying attention, you have your reel open and you find that there's a washer or two laying around there that you have no idea where they came from. That would be these washers here. Well, that one's embedded in the case, so just leave that there. There may be all 4 of these. It's been a while since I've been on one of these reels. But Scott says he's got about 300-400 yards of braid and about 100 yards of mono top shot on this thing, and it seems to be set up really nice for big fish or deep water fishing. So that's what we're after here. Yeah, those little plastics look like they're kind of wedged in there, so we're just going to leave them in there. So he suggested that maybe it's braid slip, and you know what? He may be right. Now, we're not going to be able to do that there. What I'm going to check out is all the mechanicals first. Then we're going to see if that braid was loaded with backing. And if the mechanicals all check out, in other words, no broken teeth or unusual things that you would, are there that you wouldn't expect to see there. A broken line would be an example of that. If it all checks out, then what we will go and do is we will pull all of that line off this reel, transfer it to another reel, back it, and reinstall the line. And well, then Scott will have to field test it. Well, as I mentioned, you can pull the 4 of them off, and this whole side plate can come off without removing the gears. Well, right from here, you can take a look at the gears. There doesn't appear to be anything stuck in the gears. We'll get over to that in a moment. There's also a little spring. Glad that I caught it right here, with a little rocket on it. We're just going to put that back in the case. This is almost like that spring you find on the Shimano reels. It's a little rocket spring right here. I imagine under our preset, yeah, right here you're going to have a little noise maker, and I think for safety's sake I'm just going to put that in the tray just so I don't lose that. Okay, here's what you do to get the reel service. We can go either way, it doesn't matter. We can work the spool side first, or we can work the gear side. Since I have the spool side out, let's go ahead and do that. Again, I'm just going to leave the gear side off for a moment, the case off for a moment. And we have to get a micro screwdriver to pull those screws out. Remember, when you do these things, to match the screwdriver to the slot in the screw. The other thing you want to do is you want to take pictures along the way. It's very easy to have your memory fail. You can trust that it's going to be one thing. You're going to set the reel down, go do some things, and you come back and you say, well, gee, where was I in the process? Where did this piece go? Did this piece come before or after? And so on. And, well, it's just a better thing just to take some pictures at critical junctures. So use your cell phone, use your camera. I learned another one the other day. Use your image capture device. I guess that's a broader term, so use your iPad or whatever you capture your images on. Heck, use a digital camera, use the old film if you want. All right, we're removing the cover assembly for the pressure plate and the drag washer assembly here. I don't think that it has anything to do with the drags, but again, it's an unusual problem. This is very well sealed, so you wouldn't expect to see something inside. But you know what, there is a lot of oil on that. And that, for the most part, that shouldn't be like that. So let's mop that oil up. The drag washer itself, the bearing itself, look fine. There's a little tension washer, we'll get that off of there. Good place to take the pictures again. So we have the tension washer, and we have a spring. I'm going to put that spring into the case again. You can transfer this. Now, you want to check is the issue related to the drag washer, and I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing a nice tight drag washer that doesn't show any signs of wear. I'll put those into the case as well. Now let's come over on this side. There's 3 more screws over here that will release the axle assembly. And again, at this point, I'm pretty sure it's not anything to do with the spool. But you do want to check. On the old thing about assuming, right? If you assume, well, you know what it makes you. All right, I'm taking these screws out. When I take them out, I put them on my table, and I want to make sure that all of those screws are the same size. Now, just logically it makes sense. Yeah, I know that they're all going to be the same size. You never know. You never know. I found one the other day that I just assumed was the same size. Should have been the same size. And, well, somebody put out put the wrong screw in, and that's what was causing the issue. So, never underestimate what folks can do. All right, there's a spring inside here. This is the back end of the assembly. I wanted to make sure that that works. There's a ferrule in here. You can probably see. Because this is a maintenance, I'm going to oil the bearing underneath. This is pretty straightforward here. So we have the collar, a plastic bushing kind of a thing, a bearing. I'm going to oil that bearing. Another ferrule. And we're going to bring that through this side. There's a spring again inside that case. And then you can see I just popped out that other ferrule. And the back of this pressure plate is going to go on. That'll run in here. There's a bearing in here. We can oil that bearing. These are shielded bearings, not sealed. We also have a little washer. And we'll go over the stem here on that ferrule so that it doesn't impact the performance of the bearing. You can slide the bearing on, and then this is the geared washer or the pressure washer for the reel. Those are going to fit into the slots. And then let's go over to the other side. I'm going to hold that down nice and tight. And then this is spring loaded again, so be aware of that. And we'll just try to replace those 3 screws that we just removed. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, maybe you're working on one and you're stuck, maybe there's a question about how these reels are used, maybe you even want to know what a lingcod is, we'll have Scott answer that one. We have lingcod on the East Coast, but they're not the same size as what Scott was fishing for. He was bringing up some really big ones. But they are deep water fish, and that's what he's been using this reel for. Okay, we got one more here to complete that. So as a general inspection on the spool side, there aren't any issues. We've cleaned a little bit of oil, but that wasn't drag slip he's talking about. Not that I'm familiar with. I don't think you would have slipped it even with that oil on the pressure plate. You shouldn't have slipped it that much. And again, what we want to find out for sure, we just want to take our time, just convince ourselves that we are what we are. Okay, before we put that side plate on, we have one more piece. That's that spring that goes over. We can take the top plate now and mesh that. And then line those holes up. Once you do that, you'll get those 4 little screws. Be careful with these. They have a tendency to bounce. They're small and they're relatively hard to find. Hold it tight until you can get the screw to secure it. And I like to go in opposing directions with these, so when I get the first one started, I want to go 180 degrees to the other side, sort of like north, south, east, west. It's going to keep equal tension on that. So, nothing inside the spool, and that makes sense. You can see how tightly covered it is here, and nothing, no room there for things to sneak in and disturb the drag systems or anything. So we'll say it's not drag slippage on this reel. So we'll finish this up. We'll turn our attention to the other side of the reel, the gear side. We'll check that out. And again, the logical thing may have been it's braid slip. Right? I don't know if the reel has been installed with backing on it or not, but going to find out, I guess. Because next we're going to check the gear system, because we want to make sure that if there is an issue here with the gearing, maybe there's a broken piece of line in that, you never know. Okay, I've taken the time to put a rubber band on the line because it's my tendency to trap these things when I go to reinstall. So you want to line up your axle shaft with the slots in the case. That's this. And we can set that case aside. So let's go over and pay attention to what's going on here on the gear side. You're going to need a special wrench for this. This is the wrench that Penn provides for that. You're going to notice that there's two flat slots. So we're going to do it this way. There's actually 4 slots. There you go. Just crack that, and then you can pretty much remove this top nut that's securing on the trip mechanism. Again, another place to go ahead and take that picture. This is going to come out next. That's your button. Here's the absolute place to take the picture. It's right in here because this assembly has to be removed in order to remove the handle. So again, it's another micro screwdriver, this one a little bit smaller. And for those of you wondering if I take pictures, I do. I use my video as the picture backup, but that's how your 2-speed button works. Lift that up. That assembly is going into the parts tray with the other 2 pieces. And now we have the nut for our handle to be removed. Once you break that nut, just back it off with your hand. And then inside this, there is a plunger mechanism in here. You do not need to remove that part of this. Next up is the E-clip that's holding on your main gear assembly. So this is your assembly from the back. And I think before we start pushing the main gear out, we want to remove the assembly that has the anti-reverse dog associated with it. Now again, the whole purpose of this one is I'm just checking for broken line or some other debris in here because, well, the spool side is working fine. When I turned the gears, they seemed like they were working fine, but Scott is telling me he has an intermittent skip. And again, I think that we could rush to judgment and say maybe it is braid slip, but I can't imagine the gearing not turning. I can't imagine the drag not turning, not being fully engaged. But without inspection to rule out issues, there's nothing to say that it isn't something else, especially when they're intermittent. So intermittent, a lot of times something will be in the case of a reel and it will float around and it'll only become a problem at certain points. All right, this whole thing should lift now, I'm thinking. There's 2 studs that this are resting on. There we go. So that's your hold down, and then these are your anti-reverse dogs here. Fun little assemblies. Again, they should just come out. I'm going to try and leave those dogs on that the same way. Okay. Pinion gear. And then we should be able to push the main gear assembly out once we remove the E-clip. That's the E-clip. Now this whole gear assembly should come out. Again, what we're doing right now is we're visually inspecting. There is a lot of grease and the like on there. That's to be expected. That's just grease. I'm checking right now to make sure that there's nothing stuck in the teeth. I'm not seeing it, and that's always a good thing, right? But I'm going to leave that as it is. I'm going to wipe down the inner part of the case. Again, I'm looking for something that may be broken in here. Just not seeing it. Well, and then you can tell this reel has not been fished much, so you can kind of tell how Penn sets their reels up with the lubrication. All right, I'm kind of convinced and satisfied that there is no debris in here, so I think we're probably back to braid slip. And braid slip happens on small reels and happens on big reels, so it may very well be that that's the case. All right, we're going to just reinstall. Kind of working in reverse now. Get some grease onto the teeth of the gears. I'm using Penn Precision Reel Grease. Please, if you're working on these reels, only use fishing reel grease. All right, this can go back in the slot here. Bring it out so that you have the groove where you can set that E-clip. Sometimes you can pull these in by hand. I was lucky enough to do that there. Sometimes you may need an assist. Okay, that's the part there. This goes into the bearing. This is our pinion gear. To the bearing, mesh that with the main gear. Next up is the secondary gear, so this is a 2-speed reel again. Going to clean off the old grease. Notice on one side we do have a rectangle. The rectangle faces out. Doing the best to get some grease onto that. Load that onto the pinion gear. Mesh that with the secondary gear. I should have put the gloves on. I didn't think I was going to get this deep into this reel, but that's okay. All right, we've kept these pretty much in the same orientation. These are your anti-reverse backups. You want to aim these for the 2 slots and the 2 pins. Okay, and that's what it looks like when it's seated. You flush onto the square. Your anti-reverse dogs are here. And notice that you do have a spring that compresses against the side plate on both. Looks like we've got a spring here that's kind of bounced out. That's for the plunger mechanism. Next we'll take our cover then and put that back on. And we can go to our tray and get those 3 small screws. And then we don't have to worry too much about that anti-reverse mechanism there. Again, use the right screwdrivers as you do this. That way you don't risk damaging the slots on the screws and causing issues with it later. Well, Scott, I know you're watching. I haven't found anything mechanically wrong with this reel. So we're going to put it back together. We'll try one more time. Maybe something will show. I'm not hearing any noise or anything. But I think what we want to do next is transfer the line off the spool onto another reel. Check the backing. Put it back together again. All right. So that's how your gear set comes together. Now at this point you can go in one of two directions. You can do a finish off the main assembly here, or you can go in the other direction, which is to load this onto the spool and then work on the balance. I think what we're going to do here is just kind of work this to put that onto the spool. Should be simple enough. A little bit of grease onto the shaft of the spool. Remember, you've got a housing here with a square. You've got a square on your pinion gear. So this may take a little bit of turning one or the other to mesh that. With that dialed in, go into your case. Get those case screws now. Now remember, you got the spring on that pressure plate. So the spring on the pressure plate will kind of force this out. And we're going to do the same thing here we did on the other one. There we go. We're going to go kind of north, south, east, west. And you kind of need a strong grip for this. Once you get the one done, you can relax your hands a little bit and relax your grip. So the next one would be in the bottom corner here. And we'll repeat a couple of times. So again, it's been a long video. I appreciate everybody's patience is still here. If you haven't subscribed and you've been watching for so long, I think by now you probably made a determination that it's kind of a fun channel to watch. You can learn something from it, and I would encourage you to subscribe. To all those of you that have subscribed to 28,000 plus, thank you very much for your subscriptions. You're really what makes the channel everything that it is. Okay, two more. If we got north, south, we can go east, west. Doesn't matter which one goes next. We know that we have equal tension on the case. This is a ratcheting palm driver. It takes some of the stress off your hands as you're working on it. This particular one is by Snap-on, but any of the modern ones, anywhere, will have the same effect. This is a gift from my son-in-law, which we continue to use for quite some time now. All right, those are the four that are meaningful. Next up then, we can install the other side of this. Remember what we said, there's a little kind of a rocket spring here. I'll deal with that right now so I don't lose that. It's a little push button, well, rocket. I call it a rocket because it will shoot. Belongs right in there. And then we have the washer, and that's where this little serrated edge is going to make the click, click, click. So let's get that down. We can bring the mounting pieces over now. I'm going to put the first one in loose. Just get it started. Because once I get it started, I need to put the handle back on here. And you're going to notice there's a little tensioner here. So that needs to fit inside that tensioner and then over that cap. There's a second one of these that goes to the right side. And then there's a flathead one that goes in the middle, a tapered edge. This is our ramp set that goes in. It sits clear of that. Now we can install the tapered one. And we can tighten down to 3 of these now. Okay, we just need our preset now. The preset should be in 2 steps now. You want to set your preset all the way over on the left, and these 2 ramps need to line up with the mount this way. Once you do that, take your preset adjuster, bring that on board. Okay, that's our preset. Just checking to make sure it works, and we have a free spool, and then as we hit here, we have our gear turning, so we're set perfectly with that. Next up then, let's finish the handle assembly. Spring goes back in, a little plastic piece goes on top of that. The collar, well, the handle goes next. Yep, collar goes next. Then the handle goes. Then the handle nut goes. And the hardest part of this whole thing is that little button there to give me every wrench up. This one. There you go. I don't think I need that. I just need a little bit more of a turn on that one. Then we need to line this button up here. We might actually have it. That's unusual, but welcome. Let's see if we've caught the holes here. We may have to adjust that handle knob a little bit. I'm actually going to take one of those screws out, visually do a sighting on that. Interesting. We need to back that button off just the slightest bit. Okay, now we have it. I'll tighten the one down that's remaining. Bring the other one back in. And this one is always the nervy one to me because I can't tell you how many of these in the 2-stage reels have that little spring just pop. It just gets annoying. Okay, we want to bring our shift lever in, push that down. Here's the collar. Tighten that up. Get your special tool, find those little grooves. Just complete the tightening. It's not even that much of a tightening, but it's enough. All right, let's test. We're in free spool. No noises there. Let's advance the first strike. Doing everything it should do. Push in for full. We're actually locked in pretty good. That's not bad for first shot to have it hit right. All right, bring it back. Let's go for 2-speed. Speed is working fine. Hit our button, make sure that that pops out again. Bring it back down. Scott, the mechanics of this reel are right. So we're going to transfer the braid now to to another reel. We'll look underneath. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out about 150, 200 yards. I tested for braid slip with it on just like this. Not much action. I'm going to take it off about 150 yards, which kind of sounds like where you're fishing. Then test again for the braid slip and take it all the way down. I mean, at that point in time, what is there to lose? All right, well, folks, while we've been doing that diagnosis and all along, you got treated to how to service the International 12 VISX fishing reel. It's a beauty, and well, it's certainly going to serve Scott for years to come, and we'll solve whatever this issue is with that skip. I'm sure of it. I hope you've enjoyed that. To our first responders, our essential personnel, our people involved in public safety, our fire, police, rescue, EMTs, and everybody who's dedicated their life and their career to serving the public, thank you for all it is that you do. And to everybody, well, lessons learned. Sometimes something annoying happens when you're out on a trip. You can't quite figure it out. You can take some stabs at it. One of the mates suggested maybe the teeth were chipped or broken. We didn't see any evidence of that in here. But regardless of what it is, we were able to fully service the reel and be confident that it's not a mechanical issue inside the reel. And now on to what could be the last remaining issue, which is going to be examining for braid slip. And after that, we're going to attribute it to hobgoblins and other things. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I thank you for watching. I encourage you to subscribe. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.